Red, power, passion, and protection. In Western cultures, red is primarily associated with intense emotion, especially love and danger. It's used for romantic symbols like hearts and roses, but also for alert signs and emergency labels. The duality reflects red's ability to evoke both attraction and alarm. In China, red represents happiness, luck, and celebration. It appears in festivals, weddings, and as protective decoration. Historically, it was tied to the fire element and used in imperial symbolism. In India, red indicates purity and marital status. Brides wear red saris, and red powder is used in weddings and religious rituals. Red's meaning in Africa varies by region. In South Africa, it may represent mourning, while in other countries it symbolizes the blood of martyrs and the struggle for independence. In the Middle East, red often appears in flags to represent courage or revolution. But it is less symbolically dominant than colors like green or black. Ancient Egyptians viewed red as a double-edged symbol. It represented chaos and danger, but also vitality and protection. It was linked to the desert god Set and used in amulets to repel evil. In Rome, red denoted power, war, and victory. Generals painted themselves red during triumphs, and red togas were worn by senators. In Christianity, red is associated with the blood of Christ and the fire of the Holy Spirit. Catholic cardinals wear red to symbolize their willingness to sacrifice. In political movements, red became the color of revolution and communism, used in flags and symbols from the Soviet Union to modern China. Blue, protection, spirituality, and authority. In Western cultures, blue symbolizes calmness, trust, and loyalty. It is commonly used in business settings and uniforms due to its conservative tone. However, in English, the phrase "feeling blue" ties the color to sadness and melancholy, showing its emotional range. In the Middle East, blue is widely used as a protective color. Blue amulets, like the evil eye talisman in Turkey and surrounding regions, are believed to ward off malevolent forces. In Judaism, blue holds sacred status. The Torah prescribes a blue thread, known as techelet, to be worn in prayer garments as a reminder of divine laws. Israel's flag uses blue stripes inspired by this tradition. In East Asia, blue was traditionally grouped with green under a shared concept called qing in Chinese. Over time, blue developed clearer symbolic use, linked to immortality and healing. In Japan, blue is associated with calmness and the sea. Indigo dye was historically important in Japanese textiles. In India, blue is linked to the god Krishna, whose blue skin symbolizes divine love and infinity. Islamic architecture extensively uses blue tiles, especially in mosques, to represent the heavens. Domes and walls from Iran to Central Asia are decorated in vivid blues as symbols of divine vastness. In ancient Egypt, blue was linked to the sky and Nile. The pigment Egyptian blue, one of the earliest synthetic colors, was used to depict gods and protective amulets. Lapis lazuli, a deep blue stone, was prized for its spiritual power. In medieval Europe, blue gained prominence through religious art. The Virgin Mary was often painted in ultramarine blue robes, signifying her holiness. The rarity of the pigment made it a sign of virtue and wealth. Blue became associated with royalty and was later adopted in military uniforms and national flags to suggest stability and order. Yellow, wealth, divinity, and caution. In the West, yellow often symbolizes warmth, joy, and optimism. It evokes sunshine and cheerfulness. At the same time, it can signal caution or cowardice. Traffic signs use yellow for warning, and phrases like yellow-bellied associate the color with fear. In China, yellow held imperial significance. It symbolized the earth element and was the exclusive color of emperors. Yellow was linked to the center of the universe in traditional cosmology. In India, yellow represents knowledge, prosperity, and sacredness. It is connected to spring festivals and deities like Vishnu. Turmeric, a golden yellow spice, is used in rituals for purification and good fortune. In the Middle East and parts of Africa, yellow can be seen as a color of mourning or fading life. In Egypt, yellow had dual meanings. It symbolized eternity and divinity when associated with gold, but also fragility when used to paint human figures indoors. Ancient Egyptians used yellow in tombs and art to depict gods and royal jewelry. Gold's incorruptibility made it sacred. Greeks and Romans used yellow sparingly. Over time, it came to symbolize betrayal. In the Middle Ages, yellow was associated with Judas Iscariot, and traders' homes were sometimes painted yellow. Toxic pigments like orpiment gave painters a vivid but dangerous option for yellow hues. Today, yellow is widely used for its high visibility. School buses, taxis, and safety vests are often yellow for attention. In Thailand, yellow shirts honor the king born on a Monday, linked to that day's color. In religious contexts, Buddhist monks in some regions wear yellow or saffron as a symbol of renunciation and enlightenment. Green, fertility, faith, and renewal. In Western cultures, green is closely tied to nature, youth, and renewal. It represents springtime, growth, and environmental awareness. Green is also used to symbolize good health and prosperity. At the same time, Western idioms like green with envy and greenhorn link it to jealousy and inexperience. In Islamic cultures, green is sacred. Green is used widely in Islamic art, flags, and religious garments to signify peace, eternal life, and divine mercy. In Chinese cosmology, green is part of the five-element system. It is linked to the wood element and the spring season. Green represents growth, youth, and renewal. In Chinese culture, however, a green hat has negative connotations, symbolizing infidelity. In Japan, green and blue were once grouped together, and the term for green, Midori, only became distinct in modern times. Today, green represents freshness and harmony. Across Africa, green often symbolizes land, fertility, and abundance. Many African national flags use green to represent agricultural richness and hope. In indigenous American traditions, green can signify life in the natural world. For the Maya, green jade and feathers were sacred, symbolizing divinity and cosmic order. In ancient Egypt, green was associated with regeneration and rebirth. Osiris, god of the afterlife, was depicted with green skin to symbolize fertility and resurrection. Malachite, a green mineral, was used in amulets and cosmetics. In medieval Europe, green clothing was worn by brides to symbolize fertility. In Christian art, green represents hope and the triumph of life over death. Orange, saffron. Renunciation, vitality, and national identity. In South Asia, orange, particularly the saffron shade, holds deep spiritual significance. In Hinduism, it symbolizes purity, sacrifice, and renunciation. Ascetics and monks wear saffron robes to represent their detachment from worldly life and dedication to spiritual pursuits. In Buddhism, especially Theravada traditions in countries like Thailand and Sri Lanka, monks wear saffron or deep orange robes dyed from local plants. This color represents humility, simplicity, and the quest for enlightenment. In India, saffron is one of the three colors on the national flag. It stands for courage, sacrifice, and the country's spiritual heritage. In the Netherlands, bright orange is the national color, derived from the House of Orange-Nassau. It symbolizes unity and national pride, especially during royal celebrations. In Northern Ireland, orange represents Protestant communities, referencing William of Orange's victory in the 17th century. In East Asia, orange shades are used less frequently in religious contexts, but do appear in traditional clothing and art. In Japan, vermilion, a red-orange hue, is painted on Shinto shrine gates, known as torii, to symbolize protection and the sacred. The use of saffron dye in Indian textiles dates back thousands of years. Because of its rarity and vibrant color, it was associated with holiness and high status. The tradition of orange robes among monks is believed to originate from the time of the Buddha, who rejected luxury and chose a robe dyed with discarded materials. In Europe, orange entered the color vocabulary later, after the fruit was introduced and named. In contemporary culture, orange is used for visibility and energy. Safety equipment, life vests, and construction gear often use orange for its brightness. In protest movements, such as Ukraine's Orange Revolution in 2004, the color symbolized change and defiance. In fashion and branding, orange is used to evoke energy, creativity, and boldness. Purple. Royalty, mourning, and mysticism. In Western history, purple has long been associated with royalty and high status. This connection dates back to ancient times when purple dye, especially Tyrian purple made from sea snails, was expensive and difficult to produce. Roman emperors wore purple robes as symbols of imperial power. The phrase, "born to the purple," referred to nobility. In Christian traditions, purple also signifies penitence and mourning, used during Lent and Advent in church rituals. In Japan, during the Heian period, deep purple, murasaki, was reserved for high-ranking officials and aristocrats. The color represented nobility and refinement. In modern Japanese culture, purple may still suggest sophistication, but it can also carry associations with mystery or villainy, especially in media and literature. In Brazil and Thailand, purple is traditionally connected to mourning. In Thailand, widows often wear purple after the death of a spouse. This practice reflects a cultural assignment of colors to grief that differs from the black traditionally used in the West. Purple was used in sacred spaces in the ancient Near East. In the Hebrew Bible, the tabernacle curtain was made of blue, purple, and scarlet yarns. In Byzantium, purple continued to symbolize imperial divinity. Christ and the Virgin Mary were often painted in purple garments in early Christian mosaics to mark their spiritual authority. In modern times, synthetic purple dyes made the color more accessible. The first synthetic dye, Mauveine, was accidentally discovered in 1856 and triggered widespread popularity in Victorian fashion. Today, purple is often associated with creativity and nonconformity. Surveys show that purple is more favored by women than men in some cultures, possibly due to its historical ties to elegance and delicacy. Black, mourning, power, and the unknown. In Western cultures, black is primarily associated with death, mourning, and formality. Funerals typically involve black clothing, a tradition reinforced during the Victorian era when widows wore black for extended periods. At the same time, black also represents authority and sophistication, seen in tuxedos, business suits, and evening wear. In language, black can imply negativity, as in blacklist or black sheep, but also strength, as in black belt in martial arts. In ancient Egypt, black had positive associations. It symbolized the fertile soil of the Nile and was connected to rebirth and regeneration. The god Osiris, ruler of the underworld and resurrection, was often depicted with black skin to emphasize his life-giving power. The color black, called Kem, gave Egypt its ancient name, Kemet, meaning black land, referring to the fertile Nile Valley. In Chinese philosophy, black is one of the 5 elemental colors, corresponding to the water element and the direction north. It represents the heavens, winter, and the feminine, passive principle known as yin in the yin-yang duality. Unlike the West, where black signifies death, traditional Chinese mourning attire is white. Black was used in imperial clothing, but was not a standard mourning color. In Islamic tradition, black holds religious significance. The Abbasid Caliphate adopted black as its dynastic color. The Kaaba in Mecca is draped in a black cloth called the kiswa, which is renewed annually. In modern times, black has also been used in political symbolism, including anarchist flags and the black shirts of certain 20th century movements. In various African societies, black can signify maturity, spiritual energy, or mourning, depending on the region. For example, in Ghana, black and red are traditional mourning colors. Among some indigenous American tribes, black paint or clothing may denote strength or be worn in preparation for battle. The symbolism is highly context-dependent and often tied to spiritual beliefs. White, purity, mourning, and sacredness. In Western cultures, white represents purity, innocence, and new beginnings. It is the traditional color for weddings, popularized by Queen Victoria in the 19th century. It also signifies peace and surrender, as seen in the white dove or the white flag used to request a truce. In medicine, white coats are worn by doctors to convey cleanliness and trust. In many Asian cultures, white is the color of mourning. In China, Japan, India, and Korea, white is worn at funerals to express grief, spiritual purity, and detachment from the material world. In Japan, white chrysanthemums are funeral flowers, and ghosts are traditionally depicted wearing white burial kimono. In India, widows often wear plain white saris to reflect their withdrawn social status and detachment from worldly life. In Christianity, white symbolizes resurrection, holiness, and light. It is used in church vestments during celebrations like Easter and Christmas. The Pope wears white as a symbol of purity and divine service. In Islam, white garments called ihram are worn during the Hajj pilgrimage to express unity, humility, and equality before God. In Judaism, white is worn on Yom Kippur to represent atonement and the soul's return to purity. In ancient Rome, white togas were worn by political candidates to signify honesty and virtue. The word candidate derives from candidatus, meaning clothed in white. In ancient Egypt, priests wore white linen garments in religious ceremonies, associating the color with ritual cleanliness and the divine. White flags have historically been used to signal surrender or non-aggression, a tradition formalized in the Geneva Conventions. White remains widely used to mark ceremonial purity. In graduations, religious rites, and formal events, it continues to signal honor and new beginnings. In contrast to the black used in mourning in the West, white in Eastern mourning underscores the cyclical nature of life and spiritual release. Globally, white continues to carry opposing meanings, both the hope of birth and the stillness of death.